I'm calling to order this meeting of the Arlington Select Board on Monday, January 26, 2026. I am Select Board Chair Diane Mahan. Tonight's meeting is being conducted in a remote format consistent with provisions in state laws for remotely conducted public meetings. I will now confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name in the affirmative, please respond. John Hurd?
Yes.
Steve DeCourcy?
Yes.
Eric Helmuth?
Yes.
Jane Morgan?
Yes.
Staff, when I call your name, please also respond in the affirmative. Our Town Manager, Jim Feeney?
Yes.
Town Council, Mike Cunningham?
Yes.
Select Board Administrator, Ashley Marr?
Yes.
First, this meeting is being conducted over Zoom. It is being recorded and simultaneously broadcasted on ACMi. Second, people wishing to join the meeting by Zoom may find information on how to do so on the town's website. People participating by Zoom are reminded that you may be visible to others and that if you wish to participate, we ask that you provide your full name and place of residence in the interest of developing a record of the meeting. Third, all participants are advised that people may be listening who do not provide comment, and those persons are not required to identify themselves. Both Zoom participants and persons watching on ACMi can follow the posted agenda materials found on the town's website, specifically the Select Board Agendas and Minutes page. If technical difficulties sever the remote connection to one or more participants and efforts to reconnect within a reasonable period of time are unsuccessful, the meeting will continue at the discretion of the chair, provided that a quorum of the board remains present and the general public is still able to observe the meeting over Zoom. Participants are encouraged to retain the phone number provided in your confirmation email for a backup audio connection to the meeting. There will be following opportunities for public comment at tonight's meeting. We have open forum, and we have a public hearing on the Eversource petition on Grafton Street. Excuse me. If you are attending by Zoom and want to participate, please use your raise your hand feature when I announce that public comment is open. And finally, because this meeting is being held tonight remotely, each vote tonight will be taken by roll call by Town Council. We will now go to the first agenda item. Sorry, I'm switching to another screen. The fiscal year 27 Town Manager's budget presentation, and I will turn it over to our Town Manager, Mr. Feeney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe we have some slides that the administrator can share, please. All right. Thank you all. And I just want to note, I am joined here this evening at Town Hall by our Deputy Town Manager and Finance Director, Julie Wayman.
Hey, everyone.
So we have a slideshow to run through this evening that will sort of bring us through the fiscal year 27 budget as submitted to both the Select Board and Finance Committee on January 15th. So if we move on to the overview slide, what we'll do is walk through, for the public's benefit, what the budget process looks like each year, an overview of the fiscal year 27 budget as presented, what some of the notable or budget highlights are, and then what the next steps are going to be in this particular budget cycle. I'll just from the top note that the fiscal year 27 budget as presented is contingent upon the successful passage of an override, which the board has slated for that vote to take place on March 28th. What you'll hear about this evening is some, what I'll term, good and necessary belt tightening on some of the town's expenses. And it is also worth noting at this time that there is a hiring freeze in effect within fiscal year 26 for all non-essential general fund positions. So without further ado, we'll walk through, for the benefit of the public again, what the budget process looks like each year.
Great. So the budget process is a year-long process starting right at the beginning of the fiscal year in July. Over the summer, department heads are putting together their capital and operating requests. We gather that information in August. We then meet with department heads over the course of the fall, so October through December. During that time, we are talking about both the operating and capital requests, and we're focusing on prior year expenditures, so looking at the 2 prior fiscal years. So for this year, it was 24 and 25. And talking about current staffing, any possible efficiencies, and potential budget requests or reductions. Then come around this time in January, we submit the budget mid-month, January 15th, to you all as well as the Finance Committee. And then we will be spending the next few months until about April meeting with people to talk about those budgets, meeting with FinCom, going over some of the hearings for the budget. At the end of April, we will publish the financial plan. That document takes the manager's budget, but then adds some of the accomplishments and goals and performance workload indicators from our departments. That will then be available for people to review before town meeting. And then in April, the Finance Committee puts together their own report to town meeting using the manager's budget and any changes that may have occurred over those budget hearings from January to April. And then in May, we will have town meeting and adopt the capital and operating budgets. And then starting July, it'll be the next fiscal year.
That's a good segue to once, the end of June or July comes is usually when we're sort of firing up the long range planning cycle for the upcoming fiscal year. And as part of that process, and I know a few members here have participated in many of the meetings this year, we first start by taking a hard look at our revenues. And over the course of what has been a sort of a long range planning cycle, we have made a number of revisions to our assumptions and estimates. And what that has led to is a projected $237.9 million in revenue for fiscal year 27. So you can see the various categories that make up the town's revenue on this slide. It's sort of the highest level. What I'll call out here is the largest increase is that which can be seen in local receipts at just over 18%. So this is one category in particular of our revenue that are, as titled, our local receipts. They're things we receive locally for ambulance fees or permit fees or hotel tax, meals tax, motor vehicle excise tax. And really there's a long laundry list of things for which we receive what are called local receipts or local revenues for which we have some measure of control over. So we really closely reevaluated what our recent performance has been in the past few fiscal years. And it showed that at least in some areas, we were far too conservative. So we have made an effort to right size those figures and project what is still a, fairly conservative, but not grossly conservative estimate on our local receipts. There is one category here that I'll call out that's entitled investment or interest income. That is one area where we do not expect to perform as we have in the prior 3 fiscal years. That has been a significant contributor to free cash in the past 3 fiscal years. And that is in large part due to the large sums of money that we had borrowed for the Arlington High School and Public Works projects. Remaining in those bond proceeds were remaining in our coffers while at a time while interest rates were high. But as those projects have reached substantial completion, obviously we've paid out through requisition our contractors on those projects. So moving forward, we expect that particular category of local receipt to return to what I'll call more historical levels. I will note here, as you know, there has been an update to this table as submitted on Saturday because we received our preliminary state aid figures from the Commonwealth through our preliminary cherry sheets with the Department of Revenue. So right now, what we're seeing is total education aid going up around 1.78%, and UGA, also known as unrestricted general government aid, is going up at a clip of 2.49%. Obviously, those make up different shares of what we call state aid. So the total increase is merely 2.09% as it sits right now for fiscal year 27. And again, that is preliminary estimates based on the governor's budget that will be released formally this week, and then as it proceeds through the Commonwealth's budget process over the next few months, that's something we'll monitor closely to see what adjustments may or may not get made by the House and or the Senate as the budget heads towards conference committee. And then one other thing with respect to revenue that I want to call out is you'll see a fairly significant percent change in the overlay. So those are funds being released by the Board of Assessors this year to fund the town's budget in fiscal year 27. So in 26, you can see it had been 750,000, and this year they've already agreed to release 1.25 million. So that is certainly a great help heading into fiscal year 27 as we do project a relatively small deficit in fiscal year 27. So all revenue is certainly welcome. And I think the next slide just sort of shows graphically how our revenue shapes up in terms of being projected onto a pie chart here. There's no significant changes this year in terms of where we are getting our money from. You know, largely we are always around 75% of property tax being the largest source of our revenue. And then after that is state aid. This year will be about 13%. Local receipts just north of 5%. Free cash, this is a larger number than we've seen in the past at 4.8%, 0.5% for the overlay, and then 2.6% is representative of the 6.2 million that remains in the override stabilization fund. So that is funds that will support or lower the deficit in fiscal year 27 that have been carried over from the prior override period from fiscal year 24 to 26 due to sort of strong performance on local receipts and a few other factors. We did not have to use all of the override stabilization fund in fiscal year 26, meaning there is still a balance to offset the deficit in fiscal year 27. So with that, I think we can move on to the other side of the ledger representing expenditures.
Okay, so big picture here, our expenditures are going up 3.88% over fiscal 26. You can see that the bottom right number on the chart there. If you're to go back up to the top, the third line down, you can see the municipal departments are increasing by 3.25%. So this is our commitment to maintaining taxation at this 3.25%. You can see overall, our departments are increasing 3.52%, but we are able to bring that down to the 3.25 by a slight increase in some of our offsets that are other funding sources for some of our expenditures. So we have had some increases to those for what we're budgeting for 27. We have increased the parking fund. We are offsetting parking control officers and the parking work done in the treasurer's office at 75% instead of 50%. So we're charging the parking fund that amount in fiscal 27. And we're also increasing the cemetery offset 30,000 as well. If you look down the next line, you can see the school department is going to be increasing from fiscal 27 to 29 to 4%. They've got a 4% rate of growth for their budget. We have also, if you look at the next line down for Minuteman, you'll see a decrease of $63,000. So this is due to the fact that Minuteman uses a 4-year rolling average for our enrollment to determine what our assessment is. So we've had a slight decrease in that enrollment. And there has been an increase in out of district students. And Minuteman is able to actually charge those students an assessment for the capital work that the in-district communities pay for. So we've got a slight decrease to what what the Minuteman expects our assessment to be now for fiscal 27. So that was good news. Healthcare and pension. So you can see that's growing by 8.8% in the aggregate. If you pull them out though, based on the GIC's preliminary estimate, we have been budgeting an 11.25% increase for health insurance growth. And pensions are currently budgeted to grow at 5%. So that was actually work with the retirement board and coming to an agreement in cooperation with them to reduce that from what had previously been a 5.5% increase each year. The next line is solid waste. So this line we have pulled out, so the next line is for solid waste. So that we have pulled out as a separate line for tracking of this expense. And right now we're budgeting that increase at a 6% increase from this year to next year to fiscal 27. The only other thing I want to pull out is the warrant articles. They are going to be dropping just slightly from fiscal 26 to 27. And I'll go into the details in a couple slides as to why that is. You can now go to the pie chart. So the only thing here that I really want to highlight is that if you do take a look at both Minuteman and the school department budgets, you'll see that they are just under, these are direct education expenses that are just under 50% of our expenses. And I also just want to highlight that municipal departments, so that's, everything, police, fire, libraries, that is all of our finance departments. You can see that's about 17% of the budget. And that is, I just want to call it, that's smaller than our healthcare and pension, what we need to budget for healthcare and pension at 19% of the budget. So I just think that's something striking to pay attention to. And I think that's all for the pie chart right now.
So one thing I'll mention, as Julie alluded to, that we had called out solid waste as sort of its own separate line. That line in particular is tracking our new curbside collection contract with WM. So the hauling costs as well as the costs associated with the solid waste disposal and the recycling processing. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in territory where it is now more expensive to process recycling than it is to process trash. That is a sort of phenomenon that has recently flipped. Obviously, that's not an Arlington only phenomenon, but is something that will be impacting all municipalities, but it's particularly acute here in Arlington because this is our first year having to bear the costs associated with recycling. That is something we have been insulated from, and favorably so, by the extension of our prior agreement with JRM just before they were purchased by Republic. So that is something that we're going to have to continue to monitor moving forward. But this slide just highlights some of the things we wanted to touch upon today, which is, sort of total expenditure growth across the board in every category is just north of 4%. In terms of the budgets prepared by both the town manager and the superintendent, they are adhering to a 3.25% growth cap on the town side and what will be a new 4% growth cap for the school department. that was done in conjunction with the superintendent and some members of the school committee, as well as we tried to prepare for what the next 3 years of budget cycles will look like. So we, appreciate their willingness to work with various town leaders on that particular growth percentage. We'll also note that pensions, again, due to some meetings with the retirement board and some cooperation on that end, we're seeing less of an increase in fiscal year 27 than perhaps we would expect. And, that support is very helpful. And then you'll see here too, we're expecting our insurance budget to go up considerably. This is something, I think I highlighted at the past few meetings, which has been particularly problematic for the town's budget over the past couple of years, as premiums have been increasing at a double-digit clip. Preliminarily, we are expecting that again in fiscal year 27, but you will note here that it says estimated, and that is for a few different reasons. The Group Insurance Commission, aka the GIC, still has a few meetings left, one in February and then one in March, where they will determine whether or not to move forward with any significant health insurance plan design changes and determine what final rates will be for the various health plans offered to employees through the GIC. So that's something that sits as an estimate, as is the case nearly every year, and then gets refined, hopefully downward, as the process moves on. Then we have a note for town personnel increases. Generally speaking, at the highest level, the salary lines across the town operating budget are going up 6%. This is a factor due to a 3% cost of living adjustment, then coupled in with step increases, contractually due longevity increases, as well as a market adjustment due to certain union positions that have been identified as below market per our salary study conducted for this collective bargaining period. So those are set to take effect in the second half of fiscal year 27. And then the final bullet or carrot there is a salary reserve budget of just north of 1.87 million. So that represents monies that would be set aside and then ultimately transferred into the police and fire budgets should town meeting during this annual cycle approve the financial items associated with the collective bargaining agreements with the firefighters union, the police patrol union, and the police ranking officers union. So that would sit in the salary reserve budget now and then get transferred into the respective departmental budgets if town meeting approves favorable action. And then on the town expense budgets, you will see a reduction overall of $538,000. So in this area, we did take some sort of measures to reduce our administrative overhead or administrative burden, and we made some sort of across the board blanket cuts to all departmental budgets. That included a 25% reduction in advertising lines across the board. We're hopeful that actually will not have any real impact observed, because as this board approved some methods associated with our home rule legislation to do digital legal ads, which is the greatest cost of advertising that we face, we're hopeful to soon announce an agreement with your Arlington to save a good amount of money annually using their service as opposed to that of other local media sources. And then a 10% reduction in lines associated with office supplies, in and out of state travel, and printing. So, those sort of add up across the board because they impact all departments. And then finally, we did a careful analysis of spending really in every single line across the board. And there was a couple notable lines where we identified some right sizing was necessary after tracking expenditures and history. So ultimately that process led to reducing the town expense budget across the board by just north of $500,000 as proposed for fiscal year 27. So it was an interesting process with department heads this year, because normally we're looking at where we need to add expenses or potentially offer, make new community offerings or offer new programs, but that was not the exercise we undertook for fiscal year 27. And then finally, we'll talk about what some of the changes are in warrant articles.
So overall, the warrant articles came down $85,000. So that was a reduction of a couple of things. As Jim said, those administrative lines, we did the same with our committees, commissions, events, and celebrations. Each of those lines in the budget, each of those committees or commissions were reduced by 10%. I should also note that, in looking at what those committees and commissions have available currently, most have at least their fiscal 26 appropriation yet to spend this fiscal year. And most times they actually do have a carryover from year to year of an unspent budget. So that will hopefully be the case for some of them for fiscal 27 as well. We also were reduced 2 other warrant articles for fiscal 27. We brought down the private way repair fund $100,000 and the ACMi supplemental funding. Neither of these were needed for fiscal 27. And the only item that was increased, the only warrant article, was the election budget. So there are going to be 3 elections in fiscal 27. So the clerk requested an increase to be able to cover the expenses related to those elections. And so the election budget itself was, the salary side brought up $132,000, but overall warrant articles were brought down $85,000. So the next thing I just want to talk about are the requests. So as Jim highlighted, we typically do have an opportunity to grant a number of requests to our department heads. You can see some examples on the screen here, but people were looking for almost $1.4 million in increases. This included a number of full-time position requests, three full-time position requests, and 3 potential part-time requests. Unfortunately, we couldn't grant those. And I'll also actually highlight that some of those requests have come in year after year for those positions, and we haven't been able to grant those. In fact, we actually reduced our headcount by nearly 1 FTE for fiscal 27. So the only increase that we were able to grant for the town side is, you can see in red, the select board. That budget is where our audit, the cost for our audit, lives. And so we had to increase that by $12,000. We knew contractually we will be paying that next fiscal year. So that was in fact the only department request that we were able to grant for fiscal 27.
All right, and then as noted previously, this is just a slide that depicts the salary changes year over year for the various departments in town. As we noted before, overall, it's an increase of 6% from fiscal year 26 to 27. Though I know the numbers are a bit small here. Why that number seems so large, or why it's skewed higher, is if you look to the police and fire budgets, with police growing, north of 11% and the fire budget growing north of 10%, it's because those budgets on paper are now being reconciled or will be reconciled pending town meeting action to reflect recent collective bargaining agreements. So for both the patrol and fire unions, those budgets for those individuals had not been increased in fiscal year 25 or fiscal year 26 because we had not reached collective bargaining agreements. And for the police ranking officers union, which I believe has 19 personnel in it, they had in fact been out of contract since fiscal year 21. So those large numbers reflect the cumulative impact or effect of the budget on paper, being reconciled from, take it fiscal year 21 to 27 in some instances, and from fiscal year 24 to 27 in other instances. So I think I'll also just note that, and this is just something I want to point out, and it could be because the labor market is cooling a bit, but it also could be because we have made, a strong investment in our workforce here locally, that I'm proud to report that we have returned to a pre-pandemic general fund vacancy rate, meaning like the number of vacancies we had in the general fund as presented on January 15th, even with a hiring freeze having been implemented in November, is the lowest it has been since fiscal year 20. So just happy to report that the most recent collective bargaining cycle seemingly has made us a bit more of a competitive municipal employer, because we have seen on average through this contract cycle, which is fiscal years 25 through 27, as compared to the prior contract cycle, which was fiscal years 22 to 24, a between 20 and 25% reduction in the average number of vacancies at this time each year. And then I think we can move on to expense changes.
Yeah. So I'll just sort of highlight a couple of things we've sort of already touched upon, but overall, our expense side of the budget has been brought down 6.22%. So these were, again, targeted, responsible reductions that we made that helped us to ensure that we are staying within that 3.25% taxation amount, given that we are increasing our salaries by 6%, as Jim was saying. So we, again, that 10% in the administrative areas, 25% in advertising. We did make larger targeted cuts specifically to lines that we had noticed that had gone underspent for a number of fiscal years in the treasurer's office and in HHS. So overall, the expense budgets were brought down 6.22% for fiscal 27.
All right, and I don't think there's another slide in the deck, but it would be helpful to talk through what the next steps are in sort of this fiscal year 27 budget cycle. So as I noted at the outset, the fiscal year 27 budget as presented this evening is contingent upon the passage of a Proposition 2.5 override, again, the vote for which the board has set for March 28th. And in advance of that override, as town manager, I'll be making a recommendation to the board in an upcoming meeting as to what the override number or ask of the voters for the board to consider, along with a set of commitments, should be. And while we now have our preliminary state aid numbers as of Friday, there is still one moving target that may have a significant impact on the fiscal year 27 budget, and therefore the amount of the override ask. And that is health insurance. On February 12th, the Group Insurance Commission will be contemplating some fairly significant plan design changes that they're expected to vote on February 12th. So the results of that vote could impact, fairly meaningfully the health insurance premiums that are being budgeted for. As our insurance budget is, as Julie noted before, the second largest departmental budget in town. So in light of that, I think I would ask for this board through the chair to consider a meeting on or shortly after February 12th. So the ultimate recommendation for the override, which will support the fiscal year 27 budget, can have the benefit of the latest and best available information. So, I offer that to the, through the chair to the board for consideration. And then I think I would just close by noting that in the event of a failed override, given that there is a deficit in fiscal year 27 of roughly $3 million, we would need to revise the budget as presented and resubmit it to both this board and the finance committee so that a budget that is balanced to known revenues is put before town meeting for consideration in early May. That would most certainly mean service reductions and impacts on both the town and schools operations. Speaking specifically for the town, I know that we would be looking at how best to phase in those service reductions. Obviously, we'd have to begin implementation in fiscal year 27, wherein the deficit is roughly $3 million in total. But those service reductions or cuts, frankly, would deepen significantly into fiscal year 28 and beyond, given that the deficit in fiscal year 28 currently sits at roughly 18.3 million. So what I can say at this time is that the burden of those cuts would have an impact on all town departments. There would not be any department that could avoid having their budget reduced. But of course, the largest departments, which are oftentimes the most public facing, would necessarily face the greatest impacts proportionally. So I can say, confidently that process would, start by, re-envisioning town operations such that we would basically begin to pare them down over time to really what I guess I would call the most basic or core municipal functions. So what I often, describe in meetings as what I consider to be gold standard services would be reduced to lower levels over time. And, in fiscal year 27, where the deficit that looms isn't so significant, I think that would be, a number of reductions sort of around the edges or periphery. But I will note that I think many community-facing activities would suffer first because they're not necessarily, they're very important to the community and they make Arlington what it is and certainly impact quality of life. But, the amount of funding available for community events and cultural celebrations, as well as further impacts to board, committee, and commission budgets for community offerings, could expect to be significantly impacted in 27 and beyond. And then also in 27, I think we would begin to look at reducing other community engagement activities that sort of go above and beyond core municipal functions. Think about the police department. I think many of our community policing activities, such as the various camps we offer and the homelessness outreach, the Rainbow and Human Rights event support that we offer, RAD classes, Citizen Police Academy, school resource officer activities, child seat inspections, bike rodeos, right? Like the list could go on and on, would, be significantly reduced beginning in 27, as would community-based fire service activities such as open houses, touch of trucks, so on and so forth. So those are, offerings that are usually done on overtime outside of the scope of 911 basic core functions. So that would be sort of the first area that we would begin trimming, obviously, in both the police and fire departments as well as the public works department. We would see a continuation of the existing hiring freeze. So that would have sort of a significant impact on staffing levels in police, fire, and public works. And then there would also be, impacts to our solid waste contract. We would probably look to, beginning in fiscal year 27, eliminate yard waste collection during the summer months. So, that's somewhere that in doing so, if we reduced yard waste collection by, approximately 10 weeks of service, we could save, roughly $300,000 a year. Ultimately, as we would, and, I'll be providing the board more information about this in the days and weeks to come, as we would approach fiscal year 28, that's where we would necessarily see a significant reduction in force across our general fund positions that would go beyond a hiring freeze and sort of pivot towards layoffs. And obviously, when that happens, we could expect significant impacts to capacity and response times, especially in police, fire, and public works. And then I should note too that the library's budget being north of $3 million would also see some significant reductions over time in both fiscal year 27, but then into 28 and 29, and that would necessarily result in fewer hours being offered. I think in fiscal year 27, again, where the deficit isn't too great, we would have to likely eliminate the Thursday morning hours that we just regained this summer. We would probably have to eliminate Sunday hours at the Robbins Library as well throughout the course of the year. We would begin the process of phasing out the Fox Library. In fiscal year 27, we would eliminate Saturday service and then start proceeding towards a full closure in fiscal year 28 as the looming deficit would grow. And then even then in fiscal year 28, we would have to consider further service reductions at the Robbins Library, which could include impacts to teen services or the children's library section. So just wanted to point out that the fiscal year 27 budget as presented is intended to support town departmental operations as we know them, but would necessarily have to change if the override vote were not successful, because we do have to have a balanced budget before the fiscal year begins. So if that were the case, a new budget with revised amounts in the various lines would be submitted moving forward. That concludes what we had prepared to say this evening. And available for any questions or discussion about timing of the next sort of discussion around the fiscal year 27 budget recommendation.
Okay, thank you. So what I'd like to do is, I guess, have two actions on agenda item 1 at the end. We're first going to turn to questions, comments, or anything from my colleagues, but I would ask whoever raises their hand first, if they're so inclined, to make a motion to move receipt, and whoever raises their hand second to second it. And then after we go through discussing agenda item 1, the budget, so if my colleagues could start thinking now about having our currently scheduled February 12th meeting and moving that to our currently scheduled February 9th meeting, moving that to Thursday, February 12th. And I'll ask town council, that'll be a separate thing to roll call the board on that, if that's something that we could do. But we, all 5 of us, as we all have said from the beginning, need to be present for the override vote in terms of setting the amount. I was just thinking having the currently scheduled meeting on the 9th and then having a 1 agenda item meeting on Thursday, the 12th. Doing it by Zoom, I don't think is really feasible, but I mean, we could do it, but so start thinking about that. But right now I will turn to my colleagues for any questions or comments on the budget, on the GIC information, or anything else. So just raise your hand or. Mr. DeCoursey?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Feeney and Ms. Wayman, for the presentation and all the work you've been doing throughout this budget season and all the challenges that are ahead of all of us, but you in particular, in terms of making the recommendation. Before I start, I will move receipt of the presentation this evening and of the budget recommendations, and I also I know we probably want comments from everybody, but from where I sit, I think it makes good sense to move the meeting to February 12th if we have better information to help the town manager and help us determine an override amount. So I'll move, I don't know if I have to move that. I think that's just the sense on that. If you want a motion on that, Madam Chair, I will make a motion to move the meeting from the 9th to the 12th, just to allow us, maybe there's a chance we get better information. As we said at our last meeting, we want as much information as possible because we want to drive this number down as much as possible and have as much information when we take that ultimate vote. And from what Mr. Feeney said, a few extra days might be of some significance given the size of the insurance budget and what the GIC might do. So, and if I could, I have a couple of comments about the presentation as well.
Yes, and if it's okay with you, Mr. DeCoursey, I'd like to do two separate votes. So if I could have you as moving receipt and then as well as a motion to move the February 9th meeting to February 12th.
Certainly, two separate motions.
Thank
you. Thank you. And yeah, just a couple of comments. And again, we've had a discussion at the last meeting, and we brought up where we were on the deficit for fiscal 27. And I think, Madam Chair, you had pointed out that last April, the Finance Committee report had shown a deficit for fiscal 27 of 13.5 million. When we started discussing at long range planning in September, it was at 7, and now it's just over 3 million, as the town manager pointed out. And that has come down through the work of a lot of departments, a lot of boards and committees. And since our last meeting, I want to recognize and thank the work the superintendent of schools has done and the members of that committee. I know they need a little bit more discussion, but what you see in here on slide 6 that Mr. Feeney presented is 4% growth for the school department. That would apply for 3 years, 27, 28, and 29. Important to say that that's the period. But we had talked about the assessors taking steps. We talked about capital planning in different town departments too. And we really appreciate that because we're in challenging times and we need to try to do some belt tightening, but we need to make this ask, and we want to do as much as we can before we go out and do that. So I want to recognize the hard work and the compromises people have made to date. And again, there's some more work to be done. People are still wondering, okay, what's the amount going to be? Well, we want to do everything we can and have as much knowledge as we can before that amount is set. So it's going to be a few more weeks, but I think it puts us in the best position before we ask the voters to pay more in local property taxes. So just a couple comments on that, and I appreciate the presentation and the detailed budget book that we got previously.
Thank you. Mr. Hurd?
Thank you. I will second both of Mr. DeCoursey's motions. I do want to note that Mr. DeCoursey shouldn't be sitting on the desks in the select board office. It's a little inappropriate, but whatever works. I thank you for the presentation. Obviously, there's still a little more work to be done. Do we have, I don't know, this might exist already, but I know we got a brief synopsis of sort of the intended cuts to services in the event that the override doesn't pass. Do we have circulated kind of a 1 or 2 page document that we can use when talking to residents that ask about the override? Because, in past years, some residents think that we want an override so we can, add 50 new positions. This is really an override just to keep current services. And I think if a lot of residents know that they're going to lose critical services, then it helps to push the vote forward. So is there something that can be circulated that we have in hand and that can, either, blast off to our email lists or, go over with people that we interact with that shows the potential service disruptions in the event of a unfavorable override vote?
Mr. Feeney, and I know we've had conversations about this, but I'll turn it over to the town manager.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And of course, Mr. Hurd, that's something we're looking at now in terms of exactly where the reductions would be in various departmental budgets. We're also looking at sort of earmarks or prior override commitments that this board has made over the past, few decades that have been built into the budget, but that are also part of the property tax levy that, may need to be reconsidered, given the virtue that they will rely on continuing overrides to endure. We're also not just looking at the departmental budgets, but also what we call our enterprise budgets. So those are enterprise fund budgets where we actually through taxation or through the general fund provide tax proceeds to a few of those enterprises, namely the Arlington Youth Counseling Center, as well as the Council on Aging Transportation Program. Those are things that would also potentially be impacted by a failed override. So it's not even just general fund positions, it's also things like senior van rides or youth mental health counseling appointments through AYCC. So that is something we're working on assembling now and will be getting disseminated to the board in the coming days.
Okay, thanks.
And thank you, Mr. Hurd, for seconding both of those motions. And I guess I would anticipate around the February 12th meeting, a lot of stuff will happen in terms of the override number as well as what the town cuts would be. And I have been talking to people about the override, and I've been saying, unfortunately, what may happen, and we'll know this in February, is sort of the last in is the first out sort of cuts. So, the extra senior van that we have that I lovingly refer to as you can meet everybody in Arlington at Market Basket. That's what that one large part of that second van would be. So, and the manager and I have had conversations and Mr. DeCourcy in terms of getting a list, but I know that the manager still has meetings scheduled with his department heads in terms of, he's given the across the board 10% cut coming with that. He's also given an additional percentage cut but I do know he has meetings this week, and I think it's really important for staff morale on the town side that during the course of this week, maybe the first few days of next week, the department heads hear of what the outlying cuts could possibly be, so they can sort of prepare their staff going forward. And then, none of us, we've never done this before in previous overrides, would have a town employee, and I know the schools do the same thing, learn information for the first time on something we put out. The conversation should be had beforehand and discussion. So, Mr. Helmuth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make a couple of brief additional comments. I think that my colleagues so far have done a great job of hitting the right notes. I do appreciate the difficulty of this process. It's hard every year. It's even harder to start thinking about tangible cuts. And I think that the belt tightening we've done now with the 10% reductions in various places, that's not insignificant, but that is important to do. I think we do need to show the public that we are doing what we can now before we ask people to raise their taxes more voluntarily. The insurance costs particularly are really, I'm glad that the manager really pulled those out. And, that is a statewide problem with all public employees. And speaking of statewide revenues, because and I want to speak briefly to some of the downstream drivers of this. problem that municipalities have is, the manager said at the very beginning of this what the expected increases in state aid are. The governor's announced her figures for UGA and for Chapter 70 education aid at a recent conference. We're going to see those on paper this week. Those are really small increases, barely small, very small increases that just about keep pace with inflation, if that. And the state is not going to be in a position this year to do hugely better than that, more than likely. The traditional path for the state budget has been that the governor sets out a certain amount, and the legislature typically will increase to a modest degree what municipalities see. But we are facing a budget situation in the state that is not typical, and that is due to further upstream constraints coming down from the federal government, federal cuts and attempts to penalize Massachusetts for essentially being a blue state, honestly. But federal cuts to Medicare to Medicaid are in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Those are trickling down. The state is dealing with incredibly difficult budget pressures. So the cavalry is really not likely to come here. And I don't like having to ask people to raise their taxes in order to just maintain services, but that is the truth. And these are the reasons why. These reasons are very largely out of our control. And I think that I'm grateful to the manager and his team to bring us to a place where we have the transparency here, and all these figures are publicly accessible and can be drilled down to. The public can see that we really mean what we say. We are doing what we can to reduce expenditures, and I want to take a moment to shout out to our school partners who are going through this long range planning process right now and have really made some significant compromises in partnership with the town side of things to really limit our future growth and expenses. All that's necessary, and that gives me confidence that I can go to the voters and say we are doing what we can, we are projecting what we can, we're trimming now, and now the honest truth is that due to forces outside of our control, we have to ask you to do this in order to maintain the services that we have now, in large part. Even with, when we say that maintain, that's even with some small cuts. But but the risk then is if we don't do this, we're going to have really big ones coming next year. So finally, I want to express my appreciation to the manager for just being honest with us and being honest with the public about what the little cuts are and what the big cuts coming will be, because those are absolutely real. I think those are things that people care about. So it's a good discussion tonight. And with regard to meeting changing the meeting date, that's fine with me. I'm happy to support that motion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I will note that the select board, just at the beginning of this process, but did eliminate a position in our office. So we're down to 3 staff to pay for the town's share of an IT cybersecurity position that the town and the schools have split the cost on that. So what little our budget is, the little budget that could, we've eliminated a position already towards that endeavor. Mrs. Morgan?
Yes, thank you. I support moving the meeting to the 12th. I think that's important. We've done so much work to try and get to the best number that we can put in front of the voters. And I think it's important that we have all the information that we possibly can. And if there's the opportunity to lower that ask even further, I think this is the time to pass any, potential changes around health insurance costs along to the taxpayers who are going to pay that. I also think it's important to say that these are the numbers and the percentages that we have come to and that we've come to agree on for growth and to, sustain our most important and critical services. But, we know that in order to do things, I know being a former school committee member, it takes more than 4% to run our schools, right? That's the number that we've agreed to through compromise and movement and belt tightening and all of the things that we need to do before we go out for a significant override ask. But it's important to say that, we can't do everything that's necessary or that we want to do in our town or school budgets at these kinds of growth percentages. They are already constrained and restrained. So we are building a restrained ask to put in front of our neighbors. I think that the town manager has done a great job of sort of bringing that together for us tonight in a way that really speaks to all of the different inputs that have gone into it. So thank you for that. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And I will, unless I see a hand raised by Mr. Feeney, our town manager, go to the two votes. First, we have a motion to move receipt by Mr. DeCoursey, seconded by Mr. Hurd. Seeing no other hands raised, I'll now call for a vote. Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. DeCoursey,
Yes.
Mrs. Morgan,
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth,
Yes.
Mr. Hurd,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes,
5-0 vote.
thank you. We'll now go to a motion by Mr. DeCoursey, seconded by Mr. Hurd, to move the February 9th, 2026 meeting at 7:15 to February 12th, 2026 meeting, 2026 at 7:15. Seeing no hands raised, no further discussion. Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. DeCoursey,
Yes.
Mrs. Morgan,
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth,
Yes.
Mr. Hurd,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes,
5-0 vote.
thank you. And thank you to our Deputy Town Manager of Finance, Ms. Wayman, for not just appearing at tonight's meeting, but the woman behind the curtain, all the work I know you've been doing on the budget, on long-range planning, and we'll continue to do. The job isn't over yet. Next, we go to agenda item 2, fiscal year 26 second quarter financial report from our comptroller. I'll turn it over first to our town manager, Mr. Feeney. Did I lose him?
The room is muted, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay. And I'm trying to pull my,
How about now?
oh, there you are.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to have successive budget items on the agenda this evening. We thought while it was helpful to look ahead to how fiscal year 27 was shaping up, at the same time where we just crossed the halfway point in fiscal year 26, that it would be helpful to have the comptroller give an update via the second quarter financial report to show how we are tracking within fiscal year 26. And so inclined, I would turn it over to Ms. Cody, our comptroller.
Thank you. Ms. Cody?
Good evening, everyone. Ida Cody, Town Controller. Thank you for inviting me to present the year-to-date budget report for the fiscal year 26 second quarter for the period ending December 31st, 2025. We're about halfway through the fiscal year, and expenditures and revenue should be at about 50%. You probably noticed a slight change in the report. We are presenting the revenue first now in an effort to better align it with the long-range planning. And since all the focus is on revenue now, we thought it was better to present it first in the report. We do have some control over the expenses, but not so much on the revenue. So the revenue in general had several variances that need to have an explanation. They're mostly timing variances, and there were several lines that exceeded the projections. These were all good guys. Actual expenses are on track at about approximately 50%, with a few exceptions like the transfers and the pensions, which are at 100%. We also added in this report the school department. We thought that this would give a whole picture of the general fund. So starting with the revenue, the motor vehicle excise is at 14.5%. This is expected for this time of the year because the registry sends the billing information in February. So most of the revenue will be collected in the third quarter of the fiscal year. Excise tax is at 76%, and this is mostly due to the meals and the hotels. As you know, we've had we've had the several few years, we had conservative estimates on this category. Meals are at 71%, but as the town manager said earlier, we've increased several categories, and specifically for meals, we went up in fiscal year 27 by $75,000. Also, hotel excise, we're pretty much fully collected at 95%, but we did increase the projection in fiscal year 27 by $125,000. Marijuana continues to decline, and we only had a 31% collection of an already reduced projection, and we further reduced it by $73,000 next year. Penalties are at 37%, and these are usually fines and penalties associated with late payments for property tax, motor vehicle excise, liens, and tax deferrals. We usually collect all the money for this category by the end of the fiscal year. It's mostly timing variance. Pilot payments, again, this is a timing variance because the exempt organizations make payments throughout the year, and sometimes they even cross the fiscal year. Fees are 104%. This is mostly from the parking fees and the ambulance. The parking has been performing really well because the treasurer has outsourced the parking collection, the fees to a collection agency, which is actually recognized for their expertise in the municipal collection. Their name is Kelly and Ryan, and you probably heard of them. And we've also increased the estimate in fiscal year 27 by $56,000. Ambulance, we've been very conservative the past several years. So in fiscal year 27, when we went up by $350,000. Other categories worth to be mentioned here are the licenses and permits at 98%. We've been consistently exceeding the estimates. The building is at 167%, and the wire is at 347% because we've seen a significant increase in solar panels. Just like the other categories, as the town manager mentioned, we increased the building permits by $660,000 and the wire permits by $250,000 in fiscal year 27. Fines and permits are at 236%, but this is a very small denominator. We only estimated $10,000 and we've collected $23,000. And this is mostly from the moving violations. We've seen an increase in traffic enforcement and also more violations. And lastly, the interest income, the town manager talked about it. It is at 296% now because we still had some cash sitting in the bank to finish the large projects and also some ARPA money. So we were able to collect a good chunk of interest for the first part of the fiscal year. But as the town manager noted, in the future, we do not expect this category to be a significant contributor to the free cash. And that's what I have on the revenue side. Now, moving on to the expenses, really the expenses are right on track at 50%, the actual expenses. Some departments appear to be burning faster just because they encumber all their contracts at the beginning of the fiscal year. I'll start with the select board, which shows a 65% rate, but this is because of the audit. We encumbered the contract, the independent audit contract at the beginning of the fiscal year. This is actually me spending your money for people to check my work. Facilities is at 79%. They encumber the energy costs, the energy contracts at the beginning of the fiscal year. Also, school appears to be overspent, but this is because they encumber all the payrolls at the beginning of the fiscal year. And as they pay the salaries, the encumbrances are being released. And we're always working with the school department to make sure that they do not go over the budget. DPW is at 68%, and again, this is because of the encumbrances. Debt is at 77%, and this follows the debt payment schedule. And the pensions and the transfers are expended 100% because they're posted at the beginning of the fiscal year. Moving on to the enterprise funds. The enterprise funds are somewhat seasonal, except the water and sewer. Council on Aging shows the revenue collected at 95%. However, this includes the subsidy from the general fund. So of the total $78,000, $50,000 is coming from the general fund. The expenses at 76% includes encumbrances as well. AYCC is the revenue is collected 38%, and this is a timing variance. There were some issues with the claims processed by Blue Cross Blue Shield, but I've been told that that revenue is already in-house, and it's just going to be posted to the general ledger soon. And the rink revenue is at 16% because this is highly seasonal. We collect most of the revenue in January and February. And the water and sewer is right on track at 50%. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Cody. Appreciate that. I will now turn it to my colleagues. Mr. Helmuth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Cody. Appreciate the very clear and detailed memo. It's always a really good read and a great presentation. Just a question, I think probably for the town manager. Is, we noted the extraordinary collection rate of solar in Q2. We're in the 340% collection rate. This quarter also saw the very end of the federal tax credit for rooftop solar that ended for installations till December 31st. So I'm going to go on a limb and suspect that part of that is the very huge uptick in people cramming those installations in before the end of the year. That is now over. So the industry is now recalibrating, and I certainly expect to see fewer rooftop solar installations going forward. So in terms of the wiring budgeting, have we taken this particular change into effect when we think about our budgeting for next year and what we're counting on from that category?
Mr. Feeney?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Helmuth. That's an astute point, and I believe the impacts will be beyond rooftop solar installation and will likely extend to that for electric vehicle charger installations as well. That's something else where we have been, over the past few years seeing a fairly sizable uptick. But I will note that while we have increased our estimate for fiscal year 27, I do believe that it is still fairly conservative in such that it will not account for in full the growth we had seen in those two particular categories.
Thank you. I just want to say yet again, we see another downstream effect from changes in policy from Congress, where, I think my biggest concern with this is the gutting of renewable energy tax credits to encourage people and enable people to make positive changes that are going to lower their carbon footprint. But it also has a trickle-down effect on our budget, because even though it's one of the last things you would think about it in terms of revenue from fees, I think it's an interesting barometer of reality. And so I'm glad the manager has, not at all to my surprise, anticipated this with his team. But again, that is something that we grapple with, and the flow down from Washington down to our community is very clear in this and many other ways. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And then could I just ask Mr. Helmuth, did I hear you make a motion, or will you make a
I
motion?
think it was rattling around in my head somewhere, and so I certainly will say
receive.
I will receive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Helmuth. Sorry, I appreciate that. Okay, we have a motion also, Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Cody, for the presentation. As always, it's very informative, and appreciate you adding the schools so we have the full picture of expenses. And I'm sure that will continue throughout the year in terms of including that in the report. One thing I noticed too, Mr. Helmuth mentioned the wiring permit collection. Building permits with a collection rate of 167%. It's actually a good thing in terms of I think the assessors are expecting some additional growth the next couple of years that Mr. Feeney has already included in his budget estimate for 27 and 28. So we hope that continues because there's a lag between the issuance of a building permit and when we may see additional revenue through property taxes. But the fact that is still healthy through this date, probably gives the assessors a little bit of comfort as they do their job in the future. And I also want to just again thank you for the detail in each of the categories. Very helpful for us to understand what is happening. And I don't know if I said it, Madam Chair, but I'll second. If I said it, I'll repeat myself. Second,
Nope.
Mr. Helmut's motion.
Thank you, Mr. DeCoursey. Appreciate that. And I do appreciate, it just so happened that the budget report from the town manager and then the report from our comptroller, but we do appreciate those, especially I think it helps sort of track if we see any anomalies, that something that is really low and not being collected. 9 times out of 10, there's a reason for that, as Ms. Cody pointed out. It could be seasonal, it could be other things, but 1 times out of 10, sometimes it's something that we need to look at again to find out, hey, what's going on with Blue Cross Blue Shield or on the town and school side. So I know it's a lot doing the report 4 times a year, but it's definitely something appreciated, especially as we go forward, hopefully with or even without an override, because it's something that helps us make our decisions. So with that, seeing no other hands raised, I have a motion by Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mr. DeCoursey to move receipt. Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. DeCoursey,
Yes.
Mrs. Morgan,
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth,
Yes.
Mr. Hurd,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
5-0 vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cody. We'll now go to the consent agenda. Minutes of meeting, January 12th, 2026. The Lodge Womer 5K on Sunday, May 3rd, 2026, submitted by Luna Kiet, Program Director at Center for Jewish Life, Arlington, Belmont. And I apologize if I didn't say your name correctly. Arlington Educational Foundation 5K race on May 17th, 2026 by Stephanie Murphy. We have reappointments, Conservation Commission, Sarah Alfaro Franco. Term to expire 1/31/29, Parks and Rec Commission, Shirley Kniff. Term to expire 1/31/29, Open Space Committee, Elizabeth Carr Jones. Term to expire 1/31/29, Rainbow Commission, Keelan Henderson. Term to expire 1/31/29, Arlington Redevelopment Board, Shayna Corman Houston. Term to expire 1/31/29, and a request for a special 1-day beer and wine license on February 12th, 2026 at Maxima Gift and Book Center for a wine tasting. We'll now turn it to my colleagues. Someone wants to make a motion to move approval of the consent
approval.
agenda by Mr. Hurd. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. DeCoursey. Any further questions or comments? If not, on a motion to move approval of the consent agenda, items 3 through 7 by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. DeCoursey. Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. DeCoursey,
Yes.
Mrs. Morgan,
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth,
Yes.
Mr. Hurd,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
5-0 vote.
Thank you. We'll now go to a public hearing from Eversource. Original petitioner Jackie Duffy, but I believe Hannah Cooper will need to be promoted from Eversource for a petition on Grafton Street. I'll give Ms. Marr a minute too.
I would just ask if they're under a different name to raise their hand in Zoom, as I'm not seeing. Hannah Cooper.
Okay. The representative from Eversource on the Grafton Street petition, if you could use your raise hand feature.
Still seeing no hands raised.
Okay, well,
We can circle back.
we can circle back. I'll text Eversource and say, where the heck are you? We'll now go to open
Thank you, Mrs.
forum.
Chair.
Okay. Open forum. If anyone would like to speak in open forum, now is the time to use your raise hand feature on your computer, your laptop. Except in unusual circumstances, any matter presented for consideration of the board shall neither be acted upon nor a decision made the night of the presentation in accordance with the policy under which the open forum was established. It should be noted that there's a 3-minute time limit to present a concern or request. Ms. Marr, do we have any hands raised for open forum?
Seeing no hands raised at this time for open forum.
Okay. And I forgot at the beginning of the meeting when I highlighted the opportunities to speak at public forum that we do have CDBG coming up. So we also will be hearing from the public on that. So now we'll go to discussion and vote on a proposal by Lieutenant John Kelly of the Arlington Police Department for an Oxford Street sign change. I'll turn to our town manager, Mr. Feeney.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate Lieutenant John Kelly's detailed memo put before the board this evening. Given how detailed he was, I offered to not necessarily have him attend this evening, but could certainly entertain any questions the board has. But in sum, on Oxford Street, in service of the Leslie Ellis School, there have been some concerns during the morning drop-off period. So ultimately, what we are looking to do is designate a 60-foot stretch of roadway on the school side of Oxford Street as a school drop-off zone, which will allow for students to be dropped off and remove the need for kids to cross the street after being dropped off. And it will still, desired intention is to still have this area prohibit parking as it currently does. So ultimately, for the board's consideration this evening is to approve the installation of 2 different signs on an area that is already signed as no parking, and it will still instead read drop off only, no parking. And it is believed that this will alleviate some concerns that have been raised not only by the school but by others in the neighborhood doing the drop-off period. So would recommend, if possible, favorable action by the board this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Feeney. Mr. Hurd?
Move approval.
Move approval by Mr. Hurd. Is there a second? Mr. DeCoursey?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. DeCoursey. Any further questions or comments? If not, on a motion to move approval by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. DeCoursey, Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. DeCoursey,
Yes.
Mrs. Morgan,
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth,
Yes.
Mr. Hurd,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
5-0 vote.
Thank you so much. We'll now go to CDBG, agenda item 10, performance update for program year 2025-2026. We'll hear from Mary Musinski, our community development block grant manager. And then right after that, we'll go right back to CDBG, where we'll be hearing requests, but for FY27 funding. But now we're going to hear the performance update for 2025 through 2026. So I know Ms. Musinski's here with us.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
There you are. You're welcome.
Good evening. I'm Mary Musinski, the Community Development Block Grant Manager, or we call it CDBG, with the Department of Planning and Community Development. Tonight, we have 2 agenda items to review with the board. First, I'll present a brief overview of CDBG program, the program year 51 mid-year report, and a summary of the applications for the upcoming program year. Then the program year 52 applicants will have the opportunity to present an overview of their proposed programs and activities. Funded through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG, awards annual grants on a formula basis to develop viable urban communities by providing decent housing, a suitable living environment, and expanding economic opportunities. Funding is intended to carry out a wide range of activities that principally benefit individuals with low to moderate income. The community's priorities and goals are used to create a 5-year consolidated plan which guides the town's allocation of funds to eligible programs and activities. Over $1 million has been allocated to affordable housing, public parks and infrastructure, economic development, and public service activities this year. Some highlights from the mid-year report include, from our affordable housing projects, Housing Corporation of Arlington is using grant funds for capital improvement projects within their affordable housing portfolio. HCA's Program Year 51 project locations have been identified and are moving forward. HCA's projects completed so far this year include roofing repairs on Dorothy Road, decking repair on Webster Street, another roofing repair on Mass Ave, and a water main repair on Decatur Street. Caritas Communities completed their Program Year 50 capital improvement projects at Freseden Road at the end of 2025. The completed work includes roof and siding replacement and insulating the attic and basement. Caritas Communities is preparing to start their Program Year 51 window replacement at Freseden Road and the 12 Russell Terrace. They'll have the walls painted and flooring replaced. For our public service activities, public service programming provides essential health, recreation, employment training, after-school and transportation services. CDBG public services goals are measured by the number of low to moderate income participants who have benefited from the program. At mid-year, just over 1,200 Arlington residents have benefited from the program funded through CDBG. And this represents 80% of the collective goal for public services for Program Year 51. All public service activities are on track to accomplish their goals by the end of the program year, and notably the Boys and Girls Club Scholarship Program, Fidelity House's Jobs Program, and Arlington Center for the Arts Scholarship Program have exceeded their goals for the year. Arlington Eats, Arlington Youth Counseling Center, and Fidelity House's Menominee Manor Outreach Program have hit their goals for the year. Under our economic development projects, the storefront facade improvements the project is planned to start early this year. And for public facilities and infrastructure, the Boys and Girls ADA Pool Access Project is complete. The Arlington Housing Authority's ADA Entrances Project at Chestnut Manor is in the design phase. The Department of Public Works curb ramp installations project will resume again in spring. The sprinkler installation at Fidelity House is complete and pending final inspections. FoodLink's facilities improvements project is in the bidding process at this moment. And some previous year's infrastructure improvement updates. The Program Year 50 Minuteman Bikeway tree planting design has been completed. The actual tree planting will take place along with updates, which are now the Garden 250 project. The Lower Millbrook flood resilience design is now 87% complete, and the Hauser Building ADA improvements to paved surfaces project has been approved by the Executive Office of Livable Communities and is out to bid. And also the Robbins Library ADA Access Restroom project is ready to start construction after completing the bidding process. Our final category is planning and administration. The Department of Planning and Community Development manage a number of CDBG funded projects. The Planning Department is currently working to update the town's comprehensive plan update. This year's long-range planning funds are earmarked for this update. So that concludes the mid-year report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to my colleagues for questions, comments, move receipt.
Well,
Sorry,
have any questions?
Move
Um,
receipt.
Mr. Hurd. Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Helmuth?
Thank you. I move receipt and I appreciate the update. I think that the town continually does a really good job with really what are really modest funds with CDBG, and that starts with the process you go through every year that we're about to embark on again of making those investments. But it's important to report back and show the community, show the board what's being done with these. And I think that these are well targeted investments that speak to a lot of different ways that benefit residents in small meaningful ways. So thank you. I appreciate your time putting together the report.
Thank you, Mr. Helmuth. Seeing, and I'll just echo that we're about to embark on the process again, Mr. Hurd and I, along with Ms. Muzinski and the rest of the CDBG subcommittee. And it's not just a matter of having one or two meetings. Well, it is for some of us like me, but for planning and Mary and others, the subcommittee goes through all the requests and usually always asks for backup documentation because sometimes, all the times, they're painful cuts when we can't fully fund something, and then we also have to retool some things. And I do appreciate Mr. Hurd, who somehow just decides at the end to summarize everything and just say, listen, just don't ask any questions. Put these numbers in. Let's see what that looks like. It gets us there after we have all those conversations and then get some information back. So with that, we will go to a motion by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. DeCoursey,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan,
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth,
Yes.
Mr. Hurd,
Unfortunately, I think I'm the axe man on the CDBG committee. Yes.
Ms. Mahan,
Yes.
5-0 vote.
Thank you. I almost moved on without calling for a vote, but I telepathically could feel town council saying, call for a vote, Madam Chair, so thank you. We'll now go to agenda item 11, which is request for CDBG FY 2027 funding. First, I'll ask Ms. Muzinski, do you have a list already set up of who you want to call on for a request, or would you prefer that I ask people to start raising their hands and we'll just take them in order?
Yes, if we could just ask to have them raise their hands. I do have one person to reach out to, but I'll follow up with Ashley.
Okay, and I would say do them as I guess whatever order you do them in, Ms. Martha, if you could do that. But I do see some hands are starting to be raised, so
Yep.
if
There
you
we
could.
go.
I'm starting to promote them now. The first one will be Erica Schwartz. And whenever you're ready. Perfect.
So I was called on. I think it was like the moment where I was switching to a panelist where I didn't actually hear if I was called on. Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Schwartz. I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Corporation of Arlington. And I'm always appreciative of being able to come before you and make this request for CDBG. So this year, HCA is requesting $200,000 in CDBG funds to support capital repairs on our older affordable housing properties, as we have done in the past, as Mary referenced a few minutes ago. We own 208 units of housing today, and all but 48 of those were originally built before 1966. So CDBG provides vital funds that helps us keep up with essential capital repairs on these older homes. And this, as we are actively developing a long-term plan to raise significant dollars for a major renovation and refinancing of our older units that will allow us to better keep up with these properties' capital needs. But in the meanwhile, we do have exactly 100 older units today that were originally built between 1826 and 1966, and that also don't have a robust replacement reserve for these capital needs. We did acquire a portfolio of older homes along Mass Ave this past September, and with that acquisition, we built in a strong replacement reserve fund so we can keep up with the capital needs there. But for these other 100 units in question, the cost of materials and labor have grown a lot faster than these projects' original budgets anticipated. So we keep playing catch up on deferred maintenance on a lot of them. And of course, delaying their capital needs only degrades the buildings further and creates, worse environments for our tenants to live in. So we're really working hard to sort of get ahead of this and move on these projects. So as I mentioned, we're working on this long-term plan. We now have capital needs assessments completed for all of our older units. So we know their capital needs today and into the future. We have a much more detailed understanding now than we did in prior years. And we've secured technical assistance to help us incorporate significant energy efficiency improvement plans into our capital plans. So I'm hoping over the next year, we will finalize our comprehensive capital improvement and refinancing plan, and then really start to secure the full funds we need to really implement that plan. So in the next year or two, we can, start implementing. But in the meanwhile, CDBG funds would be applied to the immediate needs that we continue to have to improve these homes for our low-income Arlington families. We recently were awarded $70,000 from a family foundation to support, we just got this grant in the last several weeks, to support capital needs. And so with those funds and our limited replacement reserves that we have replacement reserves, they're just not adequate enough for our cost today. So with those family foundation funds, our replacement reserves, and the requested CDBG funds, we do expect to complete projects at an estimated 5 to 9 addresses or buildings serving at least 25 households, possibly more. It depends on, the project, what it is, how much it costs, which building it's in. Some of our buildings have 2 units, some of them have 5. And the work may include any number of types of work, including new roofs, siding, decks, HVAC systems, plumbing, kitchen cabinets, new bathrooms, flooring. We have these capital repairs, and we'll be sort of prioritizing those needs and deciding which projects are most appropriate for CDBG funds versus the other funds we have. We do have a strong staff at HCA that works with our third-party property management firm to identify projects, communicate with tenants, and complete the projects. And actually, in the last year, HCA has added 2 new staff people, a senior real estate project manager and an asset manager, who both are helping to oversee this work. And it's been working very well in the last year to have them on board to move these projects, identify them, move them forward more efficiently. So thank you very much for the past support, for hearing me tonight. And I hope you can approve this request. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Ms. Maher?
The next person will be Natasha Waden.
And actually, Ashley, could you announce who the next person is after Natasha so they can know they're next up?
Hi, good
Yes,
evening.
it will be Christine Shaw.
Okay, thank you. So Natasha Waden, sorry.
Hi, good evening. Sorry, there is the transition when you get promoted to the panelists. You can't really hear what's going on, so I apologize. I am here tonight to present 2 applications. The first one is the application for scholarship funding on behalf of the Arlington Recreation Department. Thank you so much for last year for the funds and the funds that we have been provided in past years that predates me. We use this funding and we are requesting $20,000 this year in scholarship funds. These scholarship funds allow us to, allow some of our lower income families to participate and individuals participate in some of our great recreation programs that perhaps they may not be able to participate in because they may not be able to afford that. So just in the past 12 months, we have allocated over $19,000 towards scholarships in recreation department. These include activities for basketball, futsal, tennis, soccer, fencing, skating, karate, volleyball, the after school program, summer camps, preschool, street hockey, res passes, and camps if I didn't say those already. So this has been able to help over 80 households and upwards of 140 individuals and is something that the community has relied on us very much for a very long time. As we know, costs are going up. We're looking at a potential override. Fees are constantly going up. So I know that this is definitely a need that currently exists in the town and will continue to be a need. So I want to thank you all for your assistance with this and for hearing about this scholarship. And I think that's about all I'll cover on that one. Next is is it okay, Madam Chair, if I go on to the next?
Yes, the only way I will stop you is if I see a hand being raised, but I don't, so you can keep going.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So the second request is for a Parmenter handicap accessible bathroom. This is in the amount of $150,000, and this application is coming before you in collaboration with the facilities department as well as the recreation department. As you may know, a couple years ago, we moved into the Parmenter building. Prior to that, it was Menotomy Preschool, and prior to that, it was the French school. The town did an ADA audit back in 2019, and this was one area that outlined that we really don't have great accessibility for bathrooms in this facility. I will say there is one handicap accessible bathroom. However, it's located on the third floor, which is sort of behind a suite, so it's really challenging for the community at large to find this. Typically, we have folks that will enter our building, which is on the ground floor. We have one bathroom that's in that main lobby, and right across from that is the elevator that would take patrons up and down to all of the floors there. We have 4 floors. So in this particular case, the recreation department and facilities are looking to remodel that bathroom so that it would be handicap accessible. That way there, folks who are entering the building, it's right there. We see about, give or take 8,000 or so individuals. This building is used for preschool. It's used for an after-school program. We have members of the community that come in on a regular basis seeking our services, whether it's to, check in about a recreation program or seek assistance in, trying to sign up for a program. So we do see pretty regular use. We also run community programs on the weekends, in the afternoons, and having this more accessible and more visibly in that front lobby makes the most sense at this point. So we're really excited about this project, and the recreation department also will be looking to put some funding in to, if we're removing that bathroom on the ground level there, we would be looking to, that's currently used by our preschool. We'd be looking to invest into the building as well and make the preschool bathroom in the actual preschool area. So thank you again for that application and any support that you have on that. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Whedon. With that, I'll turn to Ms. Marr for, I think you said Christine Shaw's next, and if you could just say who's after her.
Yep, the next person after Christine will be Jack Nagel.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Christine Shaw. I'm the Executive Director at the Council on Aging, and I really appreciate this opportunity to come before you, talk about our CDBG applications, which are both under the category of COA transportation. So I very much value the opportunity to talk about that program right now. So I wanted to start by saying that we had 2 applications this year for CDBG. One is for a part-time transportation and volunteer coordinator for the Council on Aging that CDBG has a long history of funding, and also a $25,000 grant for the transportation program expenses. So I want to also just share something I learned last week when I was meeting with the Brookline director for their Council on Aging, and she was mentioning the number of older adults that they serve in Brookline, which is right about just under 13,000. And it caught my ear because we have just over 12,000 in Arlington. Our population is about 46,000. Their population is over 63,000. I've always said that Arlington has a high proportion of older adults over age 60, and I thought that was definitely worth mentioning. They have an unbelievable transportation program. We were meeting about transportation, so I just wanted to share that and how many our percentage is 27%-ish right now for older adults in Arlington that are using our services. Transportation, it continues to be one of the most important and impactful services that we can provide our residents as they age. It provides transportation and access to healthcare and nutrition and food and socialization and essential services. It is, unquestionably comes up as a crucial need, and in any time there are surveys about equality and access, it's a huge piece of that puzzle. So last year, the Council on Aging completed 18,500 rides in our transportation program. So for the investment of what CDBG is giving, I think it's an excellent investment. We've done over 9,900 rides in the first half of FY26, so we're on pace to surpass that number from last calendar year. We have 2 fully accessible passenger vans that we run 5 days a week. We were one of the first councils on aging in the state last year to get a grant from MassDOT to have a new fully electric van. We're really proud of that. It's on the road now. You might start seeing it around town, but we were really proud to have that. In addition to the vans that run with our part-time van drivers, we have volunteer drivers that drive people to out-of-town medical appointments and also in-town medical appointments when a little bit more personal attention is needed. We have a partnership with Uber, and those rides are only paid for by grants for specialized medical rides for either cancer or other specific medical appointments. We provide education year-round on ride sharing, how to use Lyft, how to use Uber. We have presentations, and we work with the MBTA to educate all of our older adults on senior Charlie cards, different programs that the MBTA offers, in order to really make sure that people are utilizing all of the different transportation options that they can, and that we're matching people with what makes the most sense. It's really important to acknowledge we're the only transportation partner for Arlington Eats. We do about 2,000 rides per year just to Arlington Eats for food pantry, food pickups. All of the other rides on our vans pretty much stay in Arlington, except going to Market Basket for low-cost grocery shopping, to a podiatry clinic in Medford, and then to and from the community center. We don't charge people to come to and from the community center on the vans in order to deal with the lack of parking. And just it's a great benefit, and people coming for their social work appointments and the programs that we offer are able to get there because of the van, curb to curb. It's important to just acknowledge that of the almost 19,000 rides we do every year, only 12% of those rides are able to be paid for by the nominal fee that we charge for certain rides. So it is really, the transportation has really grown to be a service for a need for the population of people who otherwise wouldn't have transportation. We use, like I said, volunteers for all of the out-of-town appointments in order to maximize the use of the vans for being inside. And we're also running the program at full capacity. When we were able to get that third van, there was hope that we could potentially add a third van. And, due to the conditions we're facing, that's not possible right now. But we're trying to rotate the use of all 3 vans in order to keep all those vehicles functioning, so that, in the future, hopefully, there will be potential to grow the program. And I just want to mention the volunteer and transportation coordinator. That is the person, it's a 28-hour-a-week position. They are instrumental in keeping this program running. All of the requests, pretty much 95% of them, I would say, come in over the phone with a phone call, and they talk to our coordinator about what they're looking for. If they're looking, they have a doctor's appointment, they have a surgery coming up. Is it within Arlington? Is it outside of Arlington? Are they going to Arlington Eats? Do they live in a senior housing building? And there's quite a bit of talking that goes on, and personalization with each person that calls, and the coordinator matches them with whichever makes the most sense financially and for efficiency, and then creates a custom van schedule every single day that has both of our vans, all of the volunteers, all of the Uber rides. It's a very, very time-consuming, labor-intensive position, and they managed to do it in part-time hours, which is very impressive to me. They also manage the 5 van drivers and all of the volunteer drivers. We have about 21, I think, right now, and all of the Uber rides, like I said. In addition, they manage the other volunteer run programs. We have like the Thanksgiving meals that are delivered, our Warm Wishes holiday gift bags that are delivered, and all of the volunteers around the community center that help us run programs and greet people and get people where they are going every day. So thank you so much to CDBG for all of the support over the years. For the Council on Aging, this is a huge piece of the revenue for transportation through the Council on Aging, so I appreciate being able to present.
Thank you, Ms. Shard. I do want to say, I can't really say how many times I've referred someone to you, because a big part of doing that is, when someone reaches out for help, it's connect them and move on. But you're at 100% in terms of return rate. You've always, whoever I've referred to you, you've made sure you've got them on their way or connected where they need to be. And I do appreciate that. So sort of an unsung thank you. But you know what I'm talking about, because you know how much I bug you along with everyone else. Ms. Marr?
Thank you.
Thank you. The next person will be, after Jack Nagel, will be Stacy Caruth.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm Jack Nagel. I'm the Executive Director of the Arlington Housing Authority. I want to thank the CDBG subcommittee as well as the Select Board again for all the funding and support that provided, especially through the CDBG funds over the past years. One thing I'd like to highlight is that housing authorities across the state, CDBG funds as well as CPA and some other locally sourced funds are critical because the state rewards housing authorities in the towns that they're in by providing matching funds or additional grant opportunities when we're able to present these types of funds for projects we're working on. And as you may know, may not know, the amount of funds that we're given on an annual basis from UHLC to modernize and maintain our developments are very modest. In the past year, we received about $900,000 for all of our developments. That's all 713 units, including Menotomy Manor, Winslow Drake, so on and so forth. So when we receive these funds, it helps us do the critical projects we need to do, whether it's a fire alarm upgrade or in this case, site prep work that's going to meet multiple goals. So the project that we're requesting funding for this year, it's going to be some site-related work that's going to not only repave and realign the parking lot at Chestnut Manor, it's also going to do some necessary work to prepare for the group home that we want to build at this site. One of the things I'd really like to highlight, especially as we're about at the 4-year anniversary of the fire at Chestnut Manor, which happened on that front side of the building, is that the plan with this project will be to realign the parking lot so it's going to go along the side of the building, which would provide fire apparatus a better sight, line of sight and location if there ever was an emergency like that again in the future. And we also plan to add a fire hydrant in that area as well. So these are, again, this is a project that will achieve multiple goals. So, that's what we're hoping to do this year. And this is what we're going to be utilizing those funds for. Additionally, we're requesting $4,000 for the Operation Success program at Menotomy Manor. It's an award-winning great program that year after year, helps kids at Menotomy Manor get the necessary help they need, whether it's homework help or additional assistance that helps them prepare, whether it's for high school or for higher education after high school. It's always great going to some of the different events with the Operation Success kids because, in many cases, it's not if they got into college, it's the many colleges they got into as a result of not only their hard work, but the hard work of the teachers that volunteer their time through that program. So I appreciate again the support for, whether it's our modernization projects or the Operation Success program, or a lot of the different other applicants that are on this call whose programs in many cases actually directly involve our residents. So I want to thank you again for your support, and I'm available for any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Marr?
Thank you. The next person after Stacy will be David Morgan.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Stacy Kruth. I'm the director for the Arlington Youth Counseling Center. It's nice to see you all. AYCC, thank you so much for hearing about our application. AYCC is requesting $20,000 to provide free and reduced mental health counseling and medication treatment and therapeutic groups to individuals who've experienced domestic violence for FY27. So we've been so grateful to have the support of this grant over about 20 years. And without this funding, there were people who would have been denied care if we weren't able to support them in this way. AYCC is one of the only providers in the area that accepts youth with public health insurance, and we provide thousands of dollars of free and reduced care to families who are underinsured, uninsured, or who otherwise could not afford the cost of their deductibles or co-pays. So as you may know, AYCC has been around for 55 years now. We're a community-based mental health clinic serving kids aged 3 to 21 and their families. We're the leading provider of outpatient mental health and school-based child and adolescent mental health services in Arlington. And we also offer individual, group, family counseling, psychiatric evaluation, and medication management. So last fiscal year, we provided nearly 9,000 sessions to a total of 455 clients. 25% of our clients had some type of public insurance or received grant funding, and that was up from 22% the previous year. Typically at this time of the year, we would have allocated about half of our CDBG funding. And in fact, we've already allocated 100% of our CDBG funding, which I think speaks to the need in the community for this type of support. And with the anticipated cuts to Medicaid, we think this need will continue to rise in the coming years. We're committed to ensuring that all community youth and families have access to culturally sensitive and high quality care. And to this end, we strive to address any financial barriers they might face. So we've provided 166 sessions so far this fiscal year to 15 clients. We have 10 children and adolescents aged 8 to 19 and 5 adults. And in addition to providing mental health support, we also support First Step, which is our group, a support group for survivors of domestic violence. So I think it's just important also to say, in addition to the numbers, that we can't really relay the impact of this support to the families that we have the privilege to work with. I feel like it's very humbling for me, the work that our counselors are doing. And it's not an exaggeration to say that it is life-saving work that they're doing. And so we appreciate that we can provide that to anyone, regardless of their ability to pay. And that's partly due to this wonderful grant that we receive. So thank you so much for the support over the years. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Ms. Marr?
Great, thank you. The next person will be Lisa Urban after David Morgan.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is David Morgan, Arlington's environmental planner and conservation agent. I am grateful to all of you for hearing about these projects this evening, and the CDBG program is deeply important. As you've heard from many of my colleagues tonight, funding essential social services, it's work like that makes me proud to be an employee of the town of Arlington, and it's really an excellent showcase of our values and where we put our money. And last funding round, the CDBG committee funded a project at Cook's Hollow, which is a preservation and revitalization effort to enhance that, let's call it a parklet, for climate change purposes, and also provide considerably more access to the surrounding neighbors, especially those who live at CUSAC, the affordable AHA building that's there, and student athletes at Arlington Catholic and so forth. We're looking to do something similar this round, where we're focusing on social resilience and climate change resilience at the property at 21 Pond Lane. It'll be familiar to you from the last presentation I gave to this body. We requested permission for this project to advance after some successive rounds of community input and design development. We're now at a stage where we are looking to move forward with installation of a public garden in that space. It's directly next to the Minuteman Bikeway, so we'll likely see high foot traffic from that area, and sits at the edge of two contiguous CDBG blocks. So, it's a place that will draw a number of Arlington's priority populations. It's also labeled an environmental justice tract by the state. So sort of overlapping concerns in that area. The climate issue at stake in that location is not flooding, but extreme heat. The area is anywhere between 7 and 9 degrees higher on any given day than is forecasted, given the built environment surrounding the area. And so it will provide passive recreation opportunities, some outdoor access, and a place that will help to cool the neighborhood with greenery and so forth. And also just serve as a nice outdoor space for folks who do reside in these priority communities to enjoy the out of doors when it is still extremely hot. So as at Cook's Hollow, we're providing fully ADA accessible facilities there. It'll just be one circular path around the perimeter of the property. Everything else will be planted and or have amenities like benches and things of that nature. That is the crux of the matter for 21 Pond Lane. We also have a application in that is for stairway replacement at basically Mill Street and the Minuteman Bikeway. This is right next to the Millbrook Condo Association property. It's the slope going down toward Millbrook that has a decrepit, failed set of stairs as deemed by DPW, I believe around a year ago, leading to their effective closure, and we're looking to replace those. The Conservation Commission put them in many decades ago. It was part of an effort to extend the linear path along Millbrook and take advantage of the special permit condition awarded to the Millbrook condos when they were built, that they need to provide public access to the brook and also to the bikeway. So the town picked up the effort and the bill for installing the stairs on the MBTA property in order to sort of complete that access point to the bikeway. Now that they're in such poor condition, we're looking to replace those. I've gotten a cost estimate and concept design from the Copley Wolf landscape architecture firm. They have spec'd it out for us with civil engineering, and we will make sure that it is a ADA accessible ramp that gets installed, and will alleviate the town of the let's call it problematic set of stairs that are currently on site. So we're looking to solve a problem with that one and provide access, of course, universal access to and from the bikeway, also across to Buzzell Field and so forth, for the residents. And I'll stop there. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. I remember doing those stairs when I was a teenager, and I wouldn't want to do them now as an old lady. So, Ms. Marr? Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just want to thank Mr. Morgan for the presentation and particularly for the stairwell. I had a conversation with former town manager Chapdelaine in April of 2020 about those stairs, and there were issues with the MBTA at the time and other funding issues. So I'm really happy to see that an application has been put in for this because they are in poor shape and it is direct access to the bikeway. So thank you for gathering that and with the number of supporters that you've also included with the application. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Marr?
Thank you. The next person I'll be promoting will be Robert Brazil.
Hello, this is Lisa Urban from Fidelity House.
Hey, Lisa.
Sounds like I'm coming on the radio here. I just wanted to thank the board, Mary, and the CDBG committee members for the support Fidelity House has received from CDBG. It's always appreciated, but last year it was extremely timely and helpful. And I can't thank you enough. And I also appreciate your time. You guys invest a lot of time in this. I'll try to keep mine brief. I'm only requesting funds for two of our very important programs that really are investments into kids' futures and that ultimately benefits the Arlington community. One is that Menominee Manor Outreach Program, and then the other one is the Jobs program. The Menominee Manor Outreach Program, just a quick reminder, is it's for a day camp, and we provide the transportation back and forth for the kids. That really seems to be a huge hurdle for kids being able to participate. And then we have an on-site program during the school year, right on site at Menominee Manor. And then we do scholarships during the school year from preschool all the way up through high school age. And then the Jobs program is really targeted for the high school age and, hopefully preparing them for a future job or career, but really it's also preparing them for their future, being a person in the future and a parent. So the programs really, really are important, and I can't thank you enough. And without your support, we just can't provide as much to these kids, and they really deserve it. And they're just as much a part of the community as everyone else. So hoping it works out and somehow the funds, you guys can find it. Seems like all the programs are great. I don't know how you guys can make decisions, but thank you. And hopefully the rest of your evening gets shorter.
Thank you. I giggled a little when you said I'm only asking for. In comparison to what you're only asking for, really does help out a lot of kids that, what we invest in, we get a lot more back. But you're the one who's doing it, not us. So you're only doing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Marr?
Thank you. After Robert Brazil will be Andy Doan.
Okay, you can go ahead, Mr. Brazil.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Robert Brazil. I'm president of the Arlington Historical Society, and I'm commenting on the application on behalf of the Jason Russell House and Museum. With the 250th anniversary of the events that took place at the house and the popularity of events that we hold at the museum, including our lectures, Arlington Public School visits, and the beer garden, we've seen a large increase in visitors, and that's got us thinking about how to make the facility accessible to more of the community. To that end, we've instituted free admission to the house and museum for EBT and WIC card holders, and we recognize that we need to make the facility more accessible to the elderly and others who may have disabilities. The main entrance of the museum, which also provides access to the house, has steps that some of our visitors struggle with. We have an old freight ramp in the back of the museum that we use for this when possible, but it's narrow and too steep for some and is definitely not up to modern code. We'd like to add an ADA compliant ramp to the entrance by wrapping it around the museum back to our small parking area to achieve the length necessary to get the appropriately shallow slope required for this purpose, so to meet ADA requirements. It would bring people from sort of the paved area to the front door without steps, and thus access to the museum, where we have quite a few events, our restroom facilities, which we make available during events on the lawn, such as the beer garden, and the ground floor of the house. We don't at present anticipate getting people up to the second floor of the house because that would require changes to the house itself, and we haven't got our heads around that. We have worked with our preservation architect, Patrick Guthrie, and our preservation contractors, Minuteman Building and Preservation, to design a compliant and robust structure that fits with the property. We will not be modifying the historic structure of the house in any way. So once again, the ramp would sort of extend from the front door and wrap around the side of the museum, heading back towards Jason Court, I think, and where our little parking area is. And it would be visible, but not obtrusive, I think. We recognize that all the applicants for these funds are worthwhile and deserving, and we very much appreciate the consideration of the board and the committee. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Maher?
Thank you. After Andy, it will be Lisa Lay.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. I'll keep my remarks short because I know many of you are familiar with Arlington Eats, but my name is Andy Doan, the Executive Director of Arlington Eats, and our application this year is for food access for seniors. 50% of the visits to our two largest programs, the market and home delivery, are serving seniors. So that translates to 250 to 275 households every week that we serve that have seniors in their households. So we're providing them with fresh produce, lean proteins, vegetarian options, culturally appropriate, diet appropriate foods, and so on and forth. Of course, many seniors are on fixed incomes, and we estimate that we can save a senior household $1,500 to $2,000 a year on their grocery bills, which then allows them to pay their other bills and to be a part of this vibrant community, which we all know has a high cost of living. So as I mentioned, our two major programs, market and home delivery, are available to any household. And I particularly want to call out our home delivery program, which many seniors do use, but it's not just for seniors. It's anybody that has a medical ailment, anybody that has transportation issues, or anybody that's just afraid to leave their homes, we can provide them food through a home delivery program. But many of those who are using the program are seniors. One particular story I want to tell you is about a woman who has lived in Arlington her whole adult life. She actually raised her kids, and she still lives in the house where she raised her kids here in this town. And she has accessed our home delivery program for a few years now. She's not able to get out because of medical issues, and she has told us, she's like, the money I save can go towards paying my utility bills and my other bills, and her hope is to stay in her house as long as possible. So with the provision of food that we're able to provide to her and many, many, many other seniors and, of course, residents of Arlington, we're able to help individuals live in this vibrant community that we all enjoy. So appreciate the support in the past, and happy to answer any questions you have now or in the future.
Thank you. Ms. Maher?
Thank you. After Lisa, it will be Delia Tharnish, and that will be our last one.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lisa Chuley-Lay, and I'm the Executive Director of Lamplight Women's Literacy. For those of you who don't know, we are a nonprofit organization located here in Arlington that provides education and workforce development programming to individuals with limited incomes. We operate two main programs. The first is a Healthcare Careers Pathway program for certified nursing assistants in order to help them successfully apply and prepare for nursing school. And then the second program is our English Language or ESOL program for low-income immigrants who seek to learn English in order to advance in their career goals. And it is this program for which we received CDBG funding for the first time last year, and for which we are applying for funds in the coming year. So I think the most important question you probably have for me is, what was the return on your investment? And I'm very happy to share that this past fall session, we provided English classes 4 nights a week They were provided at Arlington Eats and Arlington Housing Authority's Menominee Manor. And so I would just like to pause there and thank both Eats and AHA for so generously sharing their classroom space with our students. The courses were offered at 3 levels of instruction: low beginner, high beginner, intermediate. And the first 3 months, we have nearly reached the project goals for the number of people served and are on track to exceed those goals for this project year. I'm very pleased to say also that 100% of our students have made at least 1 grade level reading gain after 40 hours of instruction. And this metric is very important to me, not only as a demonstration of our program's effectiveness to the committee here, but as because it ensures for me that we are providing the most efficient and effective program for our students, whose time is extremely scarce given the long hours that they work. So 87% of our students are employed in entry-level positions, and the remaining 13% are job seeking. So it's not unusual for our students to leave their house at 6 in the morning, head off to work, and come directly to our program at 6 p.m. ready to learn. Because our mission is to help low-income individuals advance in their careers, we also support our students with job searches, job search support, resume writing, interview skill practice. Our students come from 19 different countries this past session, but they are building their lives permanently here. They work for local employers in entry-level positions in childcare, patient care, construction, cleaning businesses. Many of them are also parents of Arlington public school students. They are guests at Arlington Eats. They're neighbors living throughout the community, including at Menominee Manor and at Housing Corp of Arlington properties. And I bring up this last point just to stress how CDBG funds really across all of the other amazing and wonderful providers that we've heard from tonight really combine to make it possible for Arlington to be a town where people of a wide range of economic brackets and backgrounds can live and contribute and thrive. So to that end, Lamplight Women's Literacy respectfully requests $6,250 to help support the continuation of this ESOL program as a resource to low-income workers in the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll go to Delia Thanish.
All right, y'all, I'll be quick so that we can wrap this up and everyone can get sleeping. I'm sure everyone was out shoveling all day today. I want to echo first what Lisa was saying. It's been really incredible to hear all of the different ways that the CDBG funding has supported all these organizations in the past. There's so much overlap in all of the work that we do to support the community. And so one of those overlaps is Arlington Center for the Arts, our partnership with the Arlington Housing Authority. I'm the Director of Education and Programs, and so we've had a partnership with them for 3 years to provide high quality free arts programs directly on site at 3 locations. So we're asking for $5,000 of funding to fund 30 programs from October of 26 through May of 2027. With these, they're free, they're drop-in, there's no pre-registration required. We provide all the materials. And so it's a really unique opportunity for our students, our hopeful students, to access arts programming without having to leave their building. As we know, particularly in our housing authority buildings, a lot of people feel isolated. A lot of people aren't really leaving those spaces. They're benefiting from the programs that some of these other organizations are able to offer. And so by being in those spaces, it really removes pretty much a lot of the barriers that they may face. There's no transportation, there's no financial needs. It's at times that we coordinate directly with the tenants associations. It's also the programs that we bring in are also coordinated directly with the tenants association. So we're do separate programming for each site. Example, we're offering chair yoga at Winslow Towers, but we are offering mosaic tiles at Cusack Terrace and Chestnut Manor based on the needs of the residents and the wants of the residents. One example that kind of ties into the next program that we're asking for funding for, we had a resident who's been attending our classes for a few years at Winslow Towers, and they were able to successfully apply and receive a scholarship to take a watercolor class free of charge at Arlington Center for the Arts. And they were able to access that through us being there, us building a relationship with them, and being able to understand the opportunities and the resources available to them. So the second program that we are asking for funding for is our scholarship program. Similar to most other people asking for funds, we are seeing an increased need. In 2024, fiscal year 2024, we distributed just over 13,000 scholarships, or $13,000 worth of scholarships to 30 people. In fiscal year 25, we distributed over $17,000 in scholarships to 47 people. And 50% of those were Arlington residents. And then again, in this fiscal year 2026, we've already distributed over $5,500 dollars in scholarships to 14 people, and 50% of those were Arlington residents. Scholarships can be used for classes. They can also be used for our camp program. So we provide childcare for 12 weeks a year, including 10 weeks of the summer. And so we find that there's, especially with this group, there's always an increasing need for high quality childcare. And so these scholarships can help, families achieve that. Let's see if there's any other specific notes. And then I just want to share a quick quote to kind of wrap up the night that kind of encompasses like both programs that we're looking for. This is from a scholarship recipient. I wanted to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude for the free pottery class through the EBT Card to Culture program, which is part of our scholarship program. The center is such a welcoming space where I felt truly welcomed and as beautifully showcases the importance of the arts. I deeply appreciate the opportunity to explore pottery in such a creative and supportive environment, and it showcases how accessible it is to all. The class was more than a learning experience. It became a much needed escape from financial and other stress. Having dedicated time to shape clay with my hands helped me slow down, be present, and reconnect with my creativity in a way I hadn't in a long time. It was both grounding and refreshing, reminding me of the joy that comes from making something with my own hands. That was a beautiful kind of way to encompass the kinds of work and the kind of opportunities that we can provide. And we are able to serve more people in our community with the support of CDBG funds. And that's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for hanging with us.
Absolutely.
So with that, first I will, and I understand the CDBG subcommittee is meeting Wednesday morning at, I believe, 8:30. Mary can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll take a motion to receive by
So moved.
Mr. Hurd. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Morgan. Okay, seeing no further hands on a motion to move receipt by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mrs. Morgan. Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. DeCoursey,
Yes.
Mrs. Morgan,
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth,
Yes.
Mr. Hurd,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
5-0 vote.
Okay, and I'm just going to do one last sort of call out for the Eversource representative. If you have joined us, if you could use the raise your hand feature now for the Grafton Street petition. Don't see anything. Ms. Mar, do you see any hands raised?
No, seeing no hands raised.
Okay, once, twice. So with that, I have lost my agenda. Agenda item 12 for discussion and potential vote 2026 town meeting warrant articles from the select board. Mr. DeCoursey had asked for this to be on, as well as Attorney Cunningham and Ms. Mar. There was also another issue. So I'd like to start with Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate you putting this on the agenda. My only question on a warrant article, and maybe Attorney Cunningham can assist with this as well, but town meeting had changed the manner in which private way repairs could be funded for larger projects. There could be a debt issuance from the town, and there may be a large one that comes along in the next month or so. And I don't know if that's something that we should be putting on as a warrant article to, again, this hasn't been approved yet, but it could be done between now and April. And I know that the residents actually in my neighborhood that this may be happening, and the ballots will be coming in next month. And I don't know if they're going to do that through their council or where it potentially could be a borrowing, depending on how the responses come in, if we should be doing that.
Attorney Cunningham?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it would be good practice for the board to at least consider it, depending on what options might be necessary for that project and for others that may be in a similar spot at some time. So I do recommend that the board consider a warrant article that might address that issue, Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Attorney Cunningham.
Mr. Feeney?
Yes, thank you, Attorney Cunningham, and thank you, Mr. DeCoursey, for raising this point. I have been in direct contact with the proponents of the project, who I think are you're referring to down in Kelwin Manor. And, you know, historically, there is a warrant article for appropriation into the private way repairs revolving fund. Historically, it has been inserted at the request of the town manager. So I was going to proceed this year with submitting that warrant article again, but also amending it to include some additional language that may reflect the need to authorize and potentially borrow the funds to support that project. So I will plan to, if the board agrees, proceed with submitting something to the warrant for consideration that looks a little bit different than the warrant article that has been in there in the past for private way repairs.
Thank you, Mr. Feeney. Attorney Cunningham, could I just ask procedurally, do we or do we not need to vote each individual warrant article proposed by a select board member, or no, we just need to give direction to you and the town manager, and then once we start have warrant article hearings, then we can all take a vote as a board?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think it's necessary for the board to take specific votes on these. Providing direction to the town manager and to me will put us in a position where we can give the board some warrant articles for its consideration. The opportunity to vote up or down, or however the board wants to vote, will come. So that's not necessary at this time if the board doesn't want to do that.
I would turn to you, Mr. DeCoursey. Is that amenable?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. And with Mr. Feeney's answer as well, I'm satisfied about this issue. So thank you very much.
Okay, and then there were two more. One has already sort of been dispensed of by our town manager. I met with two of our female town employees regarding personnel policies and, you know, reviewing those and sort of updating them to the current personnel policies that we have for the town of Arlington. So originally we were thinking a warrant article, but I believe Mr. Feeney feels comfortable with there's a lot of information that still needs to be gathered, and we just can't get it done in time for town meeting, and B, it probably doesn't really at this point need to be addressed as a warrant article. So that's not something I'll be proposing right now. Did I sort of encapsulate that, Mr. Feeney?
That is correct. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And then I don't know if Attorney Cunningham and I also had conversations with Ms. Marr regarding the all alcohol licenses. Ms. Marr, if you'd like to,
I can take that.
And maybe not necessarily say the number, but just what it is. That might be another warrant article from the board.
Sure. So, as the board may recall, at their meeting of March 24th, 2025, they voted to reduce the seating minimums for all alcohol restaurant licenses from 50 to 20 seats. With that, we have experienced a number, not a ton, but a number of restaurants that have come forward that would like all alcohol restaurants. Right now, we are only allowed to have 20 licenses through town meeting. We have issued 16 of those licenses. So it's before the board. I don't know if we want to have a discussion about numbers, but maybe just the potential of increasing that number from 20 to a number decided by the board. I will note that we don't have a limit for wine and malt licenses. So this would just be increasing the all alcohol restaurant licenses from 20 to maybe a number that the board sees fit. Thank you.
Attorney Cunningham, if the board decided to do that, is that a warrant article or home rule petition or something else?
Probably just a warrant article, Madam Chair. I'd have to look at the issue, but if the board directs, we can make sure we have the appropriate warrant article home rule petition before the board for this warrant article season. We'll make sure we'll get it filed in advance of Friday's deadline.
Okay, and Ms. Mar, did you say, for some reason I thought we only had one left, but did you say we have 4 left?
Yes, that's correct. We have 4 left, so there's a maximum of 20. It did go through town meeting. I'm not sure of the year. I can get back to the board with that information, but it did go before town meeting a number of years ago to increase from 15 to 20. Now we're looking to increase again, just so to have a buffer of some sort. But that's up to the board, and we're willing to, hear what the board has to say about that.
Okay, I could, myself personally, I thought there was only 1 left, so I was thinking this is something we should do, but it sounds like there's 4. So I guess I would turn to my colleagues if they have any thoughts on if that's a warrant article we should put into, or if having 4 is enough. Mr. Helmuth?
I guess I could answer that better if I knew what our rate was, what the pace of these has been in the last year or two. Are we close to running out, or are these infrequent? Like what's the rate of these?
It's somewhere in between. It's any given year, kind of. I know that's a pretty vague answer. In the last year, we've received 3. The year before that, it was only 1. It could be anything.
So if we got 4 the next year, then we'd be
We'd be at a max. That's correct.
It would be also helpful to know. I know the Attorney Cunningham's just now learning of this, but if this is a home rule petition or if it's just a vote of town meeting. Well, I guess either way, the board can decide whether to sort of set that in motion. I'll sit back and see what my colleagues think.
Any other thought? And Ms. Mar, was this something that is just coming from as a suggestion from the select board office, or did someone from planning also indicate?
No, this is just a suggestion of our office. I haven't spoke with anyone from the planning department, Katie or Claire.
Okay, Mr. Hurd?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this when we talked about the alcohol policy. I mean, I'm fine increasing the number of licenses. It was kind of like with the overnight parking permits, is if somebody comes in and can't get it, we're trying to bring new businesses in, and if we run out, then a business simply is not going to apply to take their business to Arlington. I mean, I don't have dramatically strong feelings about it, but I also am fine increasing the number.
Hey, any other questions or comments? I guess I would ask Attorney Cunningham, perhaps if this is something where writing up the warrant article is just a general summation. It wouldn't assign a number or anything like that. That would come further on down the road. Is that something? I don't want to add more things to your platter, but am I correct in that you would just write a general warrant article and we could discuss at a later date what the number would or would not be?
You are correct, Madam Chair. It would be just a general warrant article. The number, if the board wanted to add a number of licenses, would come at the board's hearing, or the board could just decide at that time they want to take no action on it. It would just be a placeholder. I think the thought was, at least in part, that the policy changes that the board undertook last year would potentially increase the number of licenses that would be desired for all alcohol restaurants in Arlington. I think that was the thought from the board's office, and the reason why this was brought forward tonight.
Okay, so I guess I'm hearing we can write it up to be submitted and then we can discuss it at a later date. Okay, any other board member that would like to raise, since Friday's the deadline, although Marie used to always say to me, you're the select board, you have up until we send this stupid thing to the printer. So, but I also think, abiding by the January 31st, unless there's extenuating circumstances. Mr. Helmuth?
Thank you. Just to comment on the previous item, I'll leave it to the board chair and turn it into to determine if we need to vote for this or not tonight. But regardless, if this goes forward, I'm okay with it. I would encourage, I think someone maybe suggested that if this were to come before us in a hearing, I'd want to hear from the planning department. And I'd want to get some data and some evidence of demand, and also just some advice from the professionals there. I value the input we have at the select board office because they're really closely tuned to the businesses. And I think, as my colleague Mr. Hurd said, it's important to support them. But I just want to have some context for that, and maybe even request comment from the health department as well, because our alcohol policies do have some public health implications. So those would be some directions I would be looking at in evaluating whether I support favorable action or not. But I think as a matter of keep preserving this as an option, I'm fine with putting it forward. Thank you.
Mr. Feeney, what say you on planning and health department?
If we're going to move forward with the submission of a warrant article, I'd be happy to get their input for that hearing. And likewise, I think it'll be helpful for the board to understand if this has to be home rule legislation at the recent clip at which these applications are being asked for and the pace of that process. It may be worthwhile for the board to consider moving forward at this time, because by the time that process plays out, we may in fact need those licenses, and it would prevent delay.
Okay, thank you. And I think I heard, and correct me if I'm right or wrong, Attorney Cunningham, that we don't need a vote tonight. You can move forward on those three. You and the town manager can move forward on those three possible warrant articles or other.
Yes, potentially two, but maybe three.
Right.
Yes.
So the other is the.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I think based on the board's discussion, I think, and Mr. Helmuth put it well, the direction of the board to us to put forward these warrant articles in no way puts any board member in a position to vote favorably or unfavorably on any of these. It's just the board is instructing us to make sure these are there for the board's future consideration.
Okay, so with that, if we don't need a vote, I say we move on and go to new business. Ms. Marr?
No new business, thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Cunningham?
No new business. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mister, I can't believe you made it in that teeny little Bolt car, Mr. Feeney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking of road conditions, I just want to extend my sort of deepest thanks to the Department of Public Works. They reported to work yesterday at 11 a.m. and unfortunately and regrettably, a number of them are still working right now, given that the tail end of this storm swung back through. We've lost some along the way, but that is an incredibly long stretch to be working nonstop. So, on behalf of the community, I just want to thank them for their efforts. And I know they will be back at it at some point tomorrow, so we can start clearing curb cuts and corners on tier 1 intersections around our schools to hopefully facilitate reopening on Wednesday. And then we're going to start the process of planning potential overnight removal operations along Mass Ave for this week, so that we can restore access to parking meters and try to reclaim some of the roadway width, all while monitoring what could be another significant event in the not too distant future in terms of forecasted snowfall. So my thanks to Public Works, not only the internal DPW employees, but all the also the number of contractors that serve us well year in and year out.
Thank you. Mr. Hurd?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone that's been putting in all the work to clear the roads. I woke up this morning, was able to go to the store and drive around, so much to my surprise. Unfortunately, we have the kids home again tomorrow, but I'll survive, I guess. But everyone, I do want to thank everyone for all their efforts, and good luck to Mr. DeCourcy's BU Terriers on Monday, now that he can go to the finals if they make it on the 9th. Thanks.
Mr. DeCourcy, I'll take you next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, this is a year that BU will probably be playing in the consolation game on February 9th, but appreciate Mr. Hurd's good wishes. And I also want to thank DPW and the contractors for all the hard work. This has been an incredibly long storm, and as Mr. Feeney said, the number of hours in very cold conditions. So we really appreciate all the work that they put in.
Thank you. Mr. Helmuth?
No new business. Thank you.
Mrs. Morgan?
No new business, thanks.
And ditto on the Department of Public Works, had a water main break, as well as they've had, I think, at least four or five other storm events, the icing, the sanding. I was at a meeting, I don't know, it seems like 100 years ago. I think it was last week with the town manager, Mr. Feeney, who relayed about salting and getting different messages from different people in town about how much salt and maybe there's too much salt, and just happened to get a message from someone saying, "Where's the salt?" Yeah. So so they've been kept very busy this year. A lot of people were saying to me, "Oh boy, this is the first time they've had anything for the whole year." And I said, "Not really. We've had quite a few ice storms," which people were like, "Oh, they weren't that bad." And I said, "Well, that's because DPW and our subcontractors did such a good job that I guess you didn't really notice they were storm events." So, and do appreciate, I know they had a big water main breakdown in East Arlington, on top of everything else. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn by
So moved.
Mr. DeCoursey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hurd. Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. DeCoursey,
Yes.
Mrs. Morgan,
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth,
Yes.
Mr. Hurd,
Yes.
Ms. Mahan.
Yes, and see you
5-0
on
vote.
February 12th.